Good evening and a warm welcome to all of you. To be here despite the Trevor Noah show, boxed in between two buns, and a gridlock traffic situation today is great to see a room full of people interested in sport and physical activity. From the foundation, we're delighted to be partners with Nandan Desh of SSA. I first met Nandan about 10 years ago when he was moderating an event, a fundraiser for Karunashraya, where he was doing a fireside chat with Rahul Dravid, and it was a delightful chat. And I much enjoyed it, and since then we've occasionally kept in touch, and I followed him, and he's gone on to do very well. Apart from running his own law firm, he built Go Sports, and now SSA, and is one of the pioneers in helping sports grow in India. So we're very happy that we have this partnership with SSA. Sports is an indicator of many things. Sports and physical activity is an indicator of many things. Many countries have national sports. You take the UK along with fish and chips and beer and ale, they have football. There's tennis and football again in almost the whole of Europe. There is athletics in Africa, especially long distance running. There is soccer, American-style soccer, baseball, basketball in the United States. In Australia, there is swimming and a host of external outdoor sports. In India, one would say we've got WhatsApp. But that aside, we've got this obsession with one sport in India, which is cricket. If you ask anybody on the street today about the 220 runs scored by Sunil Gavaskar at Port of Spain, they'll tell you about it. The number of catches dropped by Maninder Singh in a test match, they'll tell you. The number of ducks scored by B.S. Chandrasekhar, they'll tell you about it. It's a statistically oriented game, and we have this head about numbers, so we remember lots of things about cricket. But sports also grows with economic advancement. The more there's economic advancement in a country, the more a country experiences sport. So when SSA has picked a 100-year time span to see sport moving in India, there's meaning in it, because India is also moving parallelly in the same period of time. So in 100 years from our independence, we'll be at a certain point of time in the economic evolution of the country, and therefore that influences also our habits in sport and physical activity. It's also useful, therefore, to go back 100 years and see where we were at the time of independence and the formation of the republic. In 1947 to 1950, around the time that India became an independent country, our population was near about 350 million, 360 million. We're right now about 1.4 billion. Our literacy rate then was about 17%. We are right now at about 78%. Our poverty levels were about 80%. Today we are about, our poverty levels, people above poverty lines about 77%. So it's about, less than that is only the people under poverty level. Urban centers had about 17% of people. Today urban centers have about 37% of the people in India, of 1.4 billion people. And the number of people going to schools was very minimal. So this was sort of the landscape, and from there we've progressed. By 1990, and that time our GDP was maybe around 320, about $3.2 billion was our GDP at that point in time. By 1990, all these numbers had changed. And 1990 is an epochal year in India. That's when the liberalization process began. So we sold gold for the first time. We got our foreign exchange reserves going up from a mere, 15 days of reserves that we had, etc. And the country saw a transformation from there going forward. And the results have been there to see. By 2000, we became 1 billion in population size. By 2000, our GDP went up to a little less than $1 trillion. And then by 2007, it had really gone up a lot more to about $1.7 trillion. And 2000 to 2007 saw the maximum change in Indian economic activity. And then Today, we are about almost $3.5 trillion in the economy. Our per capita income is almost about $2,300 per person. At independence, we were $3.2 per person, a per capita income. That's the change in India. Comparatively, in 1990, China and India had the same GDP level. China is today a $10 billion to $13 trillion economy, and India is today still at 3.4. So that's the scale of difference. Their average per capita income is about almost $13,000. We are about $2,300. So the influence of economic activity on physical and on physical activity and sports is immense. And I'll tell you why. If you look at obesity in India, 20% of people in India are obese. That means out of every 100 people, out of every 100 people, about 1 in 5 people are obese. And mental health is an area in which about 70 to 80 million people in India are believed to have permanent or difficult mental conditions. If you take diabetes, almost about 10% of India is considered to be diabetic and 15% pre-diabetic, which means 25% of India, 1 out of 4 people, is either diabetic or pre-diabetic. And these are all lifestyle-induced conditions. And here's the last one, which is a big one. From 1990, the number of Olympic gold medals won by India is 21, out of a total of 30 Olympic gold medals won, including Summer and Winter Olympic Games. The number of Olympic gold medals won by China in the same period is 517, compared to India's 21. And the United States is 1,062. With this, I rest my case about why people like Nandan, Desh, and SSA and GoSport need support in promoting sport in India. The achievement of India in sport is an indicator itself of the level of physical activity that we have. So we're delighted to be part of this initiative. The state of play report that they will produce for India will be the first one by a developing country. Only the United States, UK, and Australia have one right now. And to have a state of play report for India will be demonstrative of forward thinking, of involvement in getting policy to work with actual sports activity, and in more than anything else, to get awareness about the need to infuse physical activity into our personal lives. So I'll stop with talking about sport and SSA with this. I'd like to give you a short brief about what the foundation does. It's the first time actually we're having a small event around the foundation's activity. We started doing work in the foundation in the year 2013 when we did two things. Around independence, almost 80% of India's medical needs were met by mission hospitals. And mission hospitals were run by church-related organizations. And there were about 1,000 mission hospitals working in India. Over a period of time, these mission hospitals faded away. 1, due to competition, 2, due to mismanagement, 3, inability to expand and put capital into it. But a lot of them were serving people on the periphery of India. People living in tribal areas, people living in geographically distant areas that were difficult to penetrate. So we thought it's necessary to pick some of these hospitals that were working in peripheral areas and support them. So we picked 3-4 hospitals, one in Nilambur, another one in Chhatarpur in Madhya Pradesh, another one in Assam. We help rebuild infrastructure, support them with doctors and skill sets, and retrain some of the people so they could serve local populations. Around that time, Quest, the company which I founded in the year 2007, was also setting up its foundation. We picked education as an area that we will work with. And we picked government schools that we will support. So we rebuilt infrastructure for government schools in places like Ejipura, Iblur, etc. So schools that had typically about 100 to 150 children. They usually had rundown infrastructure, toilets that never worked. Girl students were unable to come to class because there were no toilets in schools. And teachers were undertrained, and there were no computers, libraries didn't exist, etc. So we picked about 50 of such schools. Today, we've supported about 75,000 children in education. We currently support about 15,000 of them. Over the last 10 years, we've now seen the first batch of kids graduate from school, go into engineering colleges, medical colleges, and professional courses. And it's really a heartwarming sight to see people from Ejipuroi, Bloor, children of plumbers, electricians, carpenters, masons, drivers, etc., go to professional schools and study with your own kids. So it's a project we're very proud of. Smitha, I don't know if she's here today, ran this program from Quest Corp. And then through healthcare, we had more exposure to the field of healthcare. And then, there was this project with CMC Vellore. CMC is a terrific hospital among the top 5 in India in Vellore, with about 3,500 beds, catering to the lowest in economic capacity in India. They were building a new hospital about a few kilometers away in a place called Kanigapuram, also near Vellore. And that was a 1,500-bed hospital in which they didn't have a specialization of pediatrics. So we offered to build a pediatric hospital for them with 26 subspecializations in pediatrics. So like pediatric dentistry, pediatric orthopedics, pediatric nephrology, pediatric endocrinology, etc. And it will become a center of excellence for pediatrics in India. We also got the Sick Kids Hospital from North America to collaborate with them. The Sick Kids Hospital is among North America's premier pediatric hospitals. And Fairfax, which is invested in my company and sort of the Berkshire Hathaway of Canada, is funding a major part of this hospital. So it's a 350-bed hospital that costs about 280 crores to set up. Fairfax is putting in about 250 crores, and the rest of it is coming from Quest and our foundation. So that got us into the mainstream of healthcare. Along with that, we also did a geriatric care project with St. John's Hospital in Koramangala, and we are now in the process of setting up a palliative care center at Tumkur, which is about a 60 to 65 bed one. We have 3 terrific doctors with us to help us. Dr. Naresh, former doctor from, former CEO of the Ramaya Hospital, Dr. Alex, who was formerly the CEO of Baptist Hospital, and Dr. Johan, who was formerly the CEO of Sparsh Hospital. All 3 of them are helping us with this. So we expect the hospital to go live in about 12 to 18 months' time. Moving on from healthcare, we also went into the space of public health. So after COVID, we realized that it's not enough to complain about some of the issues that we are facing in COVID. There were issues on policy, there were issues on vaccine, on determination of who gets vaccines and not, and the rollout of vaccines itself. So IISc met us with a proposal to build an institute for public health. They have clinical inputs from a hospital that they're setting up. They have pure sciences on one side, core engineering on the other side, and a capability in big data sets, which influence epidemiological studies. So we thought they're a great partner to set up a multidisciplinary capacity for public health, and we offered to finance them to set that up, and that institute is under development. Perhaps will become India's premier public health research and policy institute. Following this, we also supported the Ashoka University in setting up a Center for Public Policy and Good Governance. You'll hear about it soon, and we've got it's among India's top liberal universities, and we think this center will be very crucial in ensuring that distribution of public goods and services, the determination of public policy, foreign policy in India, and how resources in India are equitably distributed in an emerging India. As India grows from 3.5 trillion in GDP to about almost 5 trillion in about 5 years' time, it's important to ensure that the whole of India's population has access to some of these benefits, and it's not restricted to a small fraction of the population. So good governance, the creation of public policy, and the study and the research involved in it will be the area of interest at Ashoka University. Along with healthcare, opportunities in employment is also something that we took a look at. And then I met a bunch of I met 3 youngsters who are here with us today and who have a very promising story to tell. I'm sure all of you during dinner time should meet with the 3 of them. There's Sujit Varki, there's Gloria, and there's Meka, who run Guardians of Dreams. So to give you a background, there are approximately about 30 million orphans in India. There are about 160 million children in India below the age of 6. And remember, 30 million orphans out of that. Australia has a size of about 26 to 27 million people. So our size of our orphans is about a nation state in that sense. India produces almost about 25 million kids every year. Parallelly, the number of childless couples who are trying to conceive is almost 27 million. So if every childless couple actually almost adopts one child, we can mathematically solve the problem, but mathematics does not solve all problems in the world. So the Guardians of Dreams is working on developing a framework by which every childcare center is measured. And then there is a rating structure on which they score them. And if a childcare center attains a certain score, they're given a grant from our foundation. So the effort is to ensure that we are able to increase the quality of life in each of these childcare centers through the framework that they will implement, and through that influence the quality of life of all the children who therefore stay in these childcare centers. It's a structural intervention that's coming into childcare centers. We also have some interest in the criminal justice system. There are about almost 5 lakh criminals in India, and maybe about 400,000 of them are serving time without conviction yet. So some of them are serving time almost equal to their conviction, or maybe a little less than that. So we're trying to help find a way by which there's legal access and recourse for some of them, and also where prison conditions can be created in such a way that is in a way more beneficial to them than where they are at. All of this in our foundation is coordinated by one person. We have a single point of reference in numerologically and in many other ways. Her name is Akansha Sinha, and you'll see her later on in the evening. So she works with partner organizations. Our belief is that we identify good partners to work with, and we provide the resources, and we give them the capacity to do what they have to, and we don't do any of this work ourselves because we work with good people. So that's sort of the background of what the foundation does and how we got involved with SSA, which we are again very happy to be participating with. I have 2 other partners in crime in this, my family. I've got my wife, Sarah, and my daughter, Tanya. And that's as small as it can get. So thank you all again for coming today, and very happy to know that all of you have an interest in sport, physical activity, and you're active supporters of SSA. I'm sure you will, over a period of time, realize the importance of what looks like a peripheral societal activity that they're beginning to do, but it will gather mainstream support with folks like you participating in this. Thank you again.